You get right up to it, right up to one side of this hurricane. You get through vet school, you get through technical school, you come out into the profession. You have just gone through one half of that hurricane.
Yeah.
And you are sitting in the eye of the storm.
Yep.
And there is just so much shit and destruction around you. The whole thing is just whipping around. We got to bring in the demo crew to clear this out, clear the land, and rebuild.
Right.
We have to get out of the eye of the hurricane, the eye of the storm, and we have to punch to the other side.
What's up, everyone? My name is Ben Glascock, and welcome to the first episode of the PAWCast. On today's episode, Dr. Riolo and I will give you a glimpse into the hurricane-like state of the veterinary industry and how it impacts us as vets, technicians, support staff, caregivers, and ultimately how those all affect patient care. This project is not a motivational speech, a rah-rah event, or an escape from your difficult career. This project is a call to action to improve the variables that lie in front of you, to use the tools that we make available in your own life to adapt and to improve. But that is enough of my rambling. Without further ado, PAWCast Episode 1, A Call to Action. The whole idea behind this thing is to reach out to those that are early season in the veterinary industry, right?
Right. Yeah, I think, what we have, especially in our industry overview, but really what we're bringing to the table is Paw Health, is I think we can help so many different people at so many different levels. Mm-hmm. And I think you have to start somewhere and, trying to look at, it's like my dad said growing up, is just that, how do you eat an elephant? It's just one bite at a time. I hated that saying when I was a kid. I hated it. But really in the end, it is just that, is you start to piece apart these massive, massive projects. And I think that's who ultimately we can start to identify as our targets and, what it is we have to offer when we can offer it. You can't be everything to everyone all the time.
Right.
Which I think, we'll find bleeds through a lot in our profession, is that, as veterinarians, as technicians, as medical support staff, and, caregiver support, we try to be everything all the time. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't exist.
No, there's only so much energy and so many hours. You can't do it all at once.
No, and I think there's kind of a stigma with that, is to not be everything all the time, I think weighs on us. Mm-hmm. And I think in my career, what I've learned up to this point is, especially from the animal care standpoint, is that everyone gets care eventually. It may not be with you at that moment, mm-hmm. but it does happen where they get care, their patient gets care, and eventually they're served. Yeah. I don't know of really too many other industries in the United States or in the world where you have one business that does 100% of everything, and it does it well. I'm sure that it exists in some capacity, but it currently doesn't exist in the veterinary profession.
Okay.
And there could be arguments from one industry to the next, but because obviously there's large players in other industries. But as the veterinary profession is concerned, we just have to acknowledge that it's okay to not do it all at once.
Right.
And I think you're exactly right. I think our, primary point of conversation or discussion is kind of that younger generation of veterinarian, mm-hmm. That either is in school, just coming out of school, been out of school for a few years, and that's one of the groups that would be the most receptive to change. Mm-hmm. And I think our profession as a whole, because it's so just ingrained in tradition, that once some of those traditions kind of seep into you and creep into you, they just sort of stick and they're there. And
that's interesting that you bring that up, though, because just having learned recently that it was started in 40 years ago,
pretty
right?
Much.
To have that I think what it is it's more like you're on the edge of the first changeover of tradition.
Correct.
So I grew up watching baseball. Baseball is rooted in tradition, right?
Right.
It's the whole part of the game.
Yeah.
But there's the cultural element of today's game that's like, oh, things are changing.
Yes.
It's not comfortable.
No.
But the game that was 100 years ago is much, much different than it is today.
Yeah.
I feel like the profession is kind of in the same place, except
Correct.
you have this educational side
Yep.
that is so rooted in it and continues to perpetuate that system
Yes.
that it actually moves much slower than the culture does.
Correct. The culture, not just the culture of veterinary practices or the expectation of veterinarians, but just the culture of what it means to be in, cohabitation of an animal, possession of an animal, have an animal in your household, is that there's definitely a social element to having an animal in your household, which wasn't here 40 years ago.
Yeah.
We had farm dogs and farm cats, and I mean, talk to some of your elders, some of the grandparents out there, and it's like, some of them now, of course, have animals in the household,
Right.
but that was not the standard in the 60s and 70s, and that was that shift, like we said, small animal medicine is only 40 years old. It's like it was all animal medicine up until about the 80s.
Yeah.
And then once we started to see the influx of corporate dollars, both in pharmaceuticals, to research and university levels, to diagnostic companies, that's what really caused that upswing in the development of the small animal profession, and where it sort of started to split away into now we have large animal, farm animal,
Right.
And even that split into equine to dairy work to cattle work to even then your small ruminants. I mean, it's starting to separate out. Just like the small animal side, it used to be small animal. Now it's we got dogs, cats, the pocket pets, the reptiles. I mean, even that's starting to
Well, and you have specialties within all of those too.
Yes, right. Yeah, body system specialty
Right.
on top of then individual preference. But yeah, and that's where I think when you're continuing to educate students and you're continuing to educate the future of the profession in a profession that no longer exists, that's one of the big disparities we have right now.
Okay.
And when we start to look at what is Paw Health Network's sort of industry overview, is those antiquated business practices, but really this sort of lack of infrastructure, this lack of service, that's where there really isn't continuity from one new graduate's experience to another.
Okay.
Between one practice to another. But even then, like I said, within the university setting, they're still kind of teaching business models that worked well in the 90s, and saying this is how businesses run. And, we can touch on that later, this top bonded practice model,
Right.
Some of these really kind of older things that, again, socially and culturally do not fit where the country is, or the expectation of care, I guess.
I mean, you're talking about a pre-internet business model. Like, isn't that the best way to put it?
Yes.
I mean, I know the internet existed before the 90s, but it was
correct.
much different.
Yeah, no, it was exclusively.
And now you're still
government.
there's still a lot of that going on. But you also have, I mean, there were people that were practicing in the 90s that were at that initial onset that are still unretired.
Oh, absolutely. yeah. And that's where Dr. Katie, she I still credit her to saying this. She still kind of denies it, but it is definitely part of it where she says that what I'm doing is I'm chasing a ghost of my own creation. Is that I identified when we started Paw Health Network in 2015 is I already knew we were 10 years behind. And, what we've been trying to play catch up to is saying we have to get to where we should have been 10 years ago now, so we can then set up the 10-year future ahead of us.
Right.
So that's why she jokingly says I'm chasing a ghost of my own creation, because it's not just a matter of progress. Is we have an incredible amount of work before we can even get to the point that we have standardized infrastructure between practices, between practice styles, between veterinarians. But that's just one part of it. And if we, kind of look at the actual industry overview, I mean, between culture, service, and talent, these are all really, really big chunks to our profession that need a significant amount of work. And that's the 10 years we should have already done up to this point.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. So when we we're starting to create our mentorship program. I had approached Michigan State University, just being my alma mater, and saying, okay, listen, we have to do more for these students because talent is a really big problem right now. The education system is not really giving them the skills and tools they need to get into today's veterinary marketplace, not the one 10 or 15 years ago.
It was the quality of the talent, not necessarily the volume of talent.
No,
just
the volume's
quality.
there. Yeah.
Yep.
And it's not to say by any means that, today's veterinarian is any less qualified or any less intelligent or anything like that, but it's just the tools and resources that they actually need to function in today's veterinary market really isn't being taught. So that's one of the big differentiating factors is they aren't any different. It's just the hurdles we have to get over is, like I said, the 10 years to 10 years is they're coming in now where we should be 20 years from now where today's veterinarian is entering into the marketplace.
Right.
Development wise.
Yes.
So to say if we just continued to progress the business model in through the 90s and 2000s, it wouldn't even be a discussion. We wouldn't even exist because the infrastructure would already be there.
Yep.
So when we approached Michigan State, this was, it was probably around 2016, something like that.
Yeah.
When I was talking to some of the heads of the college, or at least the technician, the head of the technicians, and so on and so forth. Basically, one of the things they come back with me on saying is, how do we get veterinarians to value certified technicians or licensed technicians or registered technicians? It depends on your state, but it's all the same thing.
Yep.
Veterinary nurse is a new term that they're adopting. So how do we get veterinarians to value these individuals, and not just from a job performance standpoint, but now from a pay scale standpoint, on saying how can we pay them more, how can we get them more benefits? Because one of the statistics we have right now is that most of your veterinary nurses, so registered, licensed, or certified, they're out of the profession in 7 years. They're done. They're done.
They're done.
Yeah, and that's a nationwide statistic. That's not even, and my numbers may be a little bit off, 7.5.
Either way, less than 10.
Yeah, less than 10 years.
The 7-year itch, and then they're out of the industry.
Right. The burnout rate is high, and I think right now we have a lot of discussion about veterinarians and the plights of veterinarians and the suicide rates, and in comparison to the general public, male veterinarians are 2 times more likely, and I think females are 3 times more likely to commit suicide in relation to the general public.
Yeah.
But that's if we start to look at the veterinary technician, who also has this drive for animal care, to then say, well, they're just out of the profession. It's like that's not any better. To say it's like, well, at least the suicide rate's not as high. It's like, but that's not the point. The point is that these officials, these people who I looked up to when I was in school, who really had it together back in the early 2000s, they're saying, how do we? And I kind of started looking around the table, and I was like, this was the same question you asked 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
This is the same problem we had 15 years ago. And it was one of these where, it wasn't necessarily an epiphany moment for me, but it was one of these where it was like, how have we still not figured this out?
How do we still have a question to
correct
when it's 15 plus years of trying to figure out the answer?
Correct. And I think that's the exact point, is who's figuring out the answer.
Right.
And I'm not saying that veterinarians aren't working hard. I'm not saying that veterinarians are the fault. I'm not saying technicians are the fault, but I think one of the better pieces of advice that I had gotten in my career, actually from my financial advisor, my accountant, but really he does a lot for me. He said, you have to work, if you're a business owner, you have to work 8 hours a day to maintain and 10 hours a day to gain. So if all you want to do is you just buy a business, you run that business, you keep business current model as it is, and it's just going to be your workhorse, and this is what it is, have your 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
Come in, work your 8 hours, and that's the end of it. And I was like, well, I said to him, that doesn't really work for us because most veterinarians work 10 and 12-hour days minimum.
Right.
So when are we supposed to find the extra time on top of our other parts of our lives? I mean, be in an environment where you don't have a 24-hour emergency clinic.
Yeah.
You're 90 minutes outside of town, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, well, you work 9 to 5, but now you take your own call, your own emergency. Do you have kids? Do you not? Do you have a significant other? Do you not? Do you have your own house? Do you have your own well-being? And it's like, where do you actually find the time for this?
Yeah.
So I think again, it's part of what is the culture, the talent, the service of the veterinary industry, and just saying there are certain expectations that they worked 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when the volume of clientele was smaller.
Yeah.
When you have the same number of households, it's not Levittown. We're not building, tons and tons and tons and tons of houses, or,
Right.
there are more people, respectively. I mean, our capita goes up, or, our population goes up, but the number of animals per household is steadily increasing.
Yeah, isn't the AVMA estimate for felines like 2.1, and then dogs is like 1.5? And
Yeah.
it used to probably be about one less on both of those.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's of course, I like averages, but I like medians too.
Yeah.
It's
crazy how different those are.
It's like, okay, that's the average, but really where is sort of the middle of that, But still it proves a point is that, I think the business model that had worked at one point in time with that expectation of care in those hours, is it was just a different world. Like you said, it's a pre-internet world.
Yeah. Right.
And I think, that is a good and bad place to be.
Right. I'm losing a little bit of my train of thought on that though, but it's like really when you say about having a less of a clientele.
Yeah.
So the industry was developed in a time of economic prosperity in the 80s.
Yeah.
Everyone had more money than they had ever had before, at least in
Correct.
American culture.
Sure.
So
Post World War II, post
Reagan's
60s,
in all of the everything,
after
all the
Vietnam. Yeah.
So you've got that. Then you pile on like there are less patients because it's a new industry.
Correct.
So
developing.
It's a developing industry. Yep. And
Yep.
then so you've got that, and then so if I take those two pieces and then I say I'm a new business in this developing industry, who do I want to get? I want the affluent.
Sure.
Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Because for me, I'm a startup.
Yep.
If I can get the people that have money.
Yeah, startup in a new developing industry.
Right. But the
that's
cool
trying
part
to redefine itself. Yeah.
And the cool part about that is like in that time, the people that had money would also be able to understand the care.
Sure.
Because they could pay for it.
Sure.
They could take the time to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Those that weren't as affluent, number one, probably didn't have access to that, to in-home pets or something like that.
Sure.
But also didn't have the time or the resources necessarily to understand the level of care that was being necessary for that relationship.
Yep.
So you take that, and then with those variables, it makes complete sense why the industry caters to the top 20%.
Absolutely.
Because that's where it was built.
Yep.
Now you have all of those people that thank you for starting it. Like that's
absolutely.
Awesome. Give them
They're
a
the
ton
trendsetters.
of credit.
Absolutely. They broke away so I could have my job today.
Exactly.
It's Edison. He says one of my favorite quotes, and I might do it a little wrong, but it's I'm only great because I stand on the shoulders of giants.
Exactly.
It's how I live my life. I'm incredibly grateful for those who have come before me to set the wave for my lifestyle and also the future of the profession. And it's the same thing. I think part of that too for me is ingrained in coming from an immigrant household. It's between my Italian and Yugoslavian upbringing we were always creating, every generation was making a new life, a better life for the ones that come after them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I see that caretaking of the veterinarians who have come before us.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a time when the elders need to be recognized as elders.
Right.
And we need.
That was kind of where I was headed with that, where it's like, yes, thank you for doing what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And yes, you guys are giants that created an industry that did not exist.
Yeah.
And now the giants run the educational side, and it's almost as if they're cast in stone.
Yeah.
They haven't. They've gone from giants to titans, and titans move really, really slow.
Yes. And I do enjoy me some good Greek mythology.
Exactly.
Yes. The
Kratos
Titans.
would be proud.
Yes.
So we have that, and now we're stuck because it's so new.
Yeah.
They started it pre-internet.
Yeah.
They're still ingrained in the educational side of things.
Yeah.
Even maybe having too much power. I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't go to vet school.
Yeah.
But then
It's a
you
challenge.
have this upbringing of all of these kids that were raised now
Correct.
in an internet culture
Yes.
when things move so quickly.
Yes.
and they're expecting that.
Yes. And I think, it brings up a very good point because when we start to talk about one of the issues we have with culture is exactly that, is the human animal bond. And we've had some articles written on interviews that I've had and so on and so forth on this human animal bond, in saying that, on one end of the spectrum, you have working animals, farm animals, on the other side of the spectrum, you have these fur babies, right?
Yep.
So, when you start to look at sort of this mixed population of clientele, like when I got out of school in 2006, right? Mm-hmm. We very much had a mixed population of clientele. We had some of those people who had fur babies, but that was not the standard. Yeah. The standard was you had kind of a middle-class family, middle-class dog, middle-class cat, where it was just, this is an animal that is in our house that we care for. It's a member of our family, but there was never a discussion of child. That was not really the cornerstone as much as it is now. That was 2006.
That was 13 years
That was 13 years ago.
Right.
Okay. So we're talking about now, like, let's just be the devil's advocate here. So let's say you bring a 10-year-old into 2005, 2006.
Right.
They're 23 now, 24.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're saying is in the amount of time, and just my career in the last 13 years, 14 years, that now we've been having this shift of paradigm and culture towards this fur baby dynamic, right? Where it's, this is my child, this is my fur baby, which is fine. I mean, that's their definition of human animal bond. That would support whatever anybody's definition is, whether it's a working animal to a fur baby. It's their attachment, and that's something that we need to support. But if we look at saying, well, now we have these 23 to 26-year-olds who grew up emotionally or physically in a world where we were transitioning towards fur babies, well, what's the average age of most veterinary graduates?
I would have to guess.
It's mid-20s.
28.
Mid-20s,
yeah, so they're all coming out.
Yeah, so most of your veterinarians coming out now have this high emotional investment into animals, because to them it's not just man's best friend. I mean, because that was every country song before the 1980s was man's best friend.
Yeah,
on dogs. Is this like but when we start to look at then saying that we have this culture shift towards these fur babies, and that's part of the emotional investment in today's world for today's veterinarians, is that if these veterinarians are coming out of school with the attachment that they're understanding, they got into veterinary medicine because they want to care for animals. They got into veterinary medicine because they see fur babies. They want to be a part of this world.
Yep.
And they come out, and it's like, I got news. Not everyone has that attachment, but you grew up with that. And I'm not saying every veterinarian thinks every animal's a fur baby. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying in this group that's emotionally invested in the care of their patients, and when that emotional investment is higher than the emotional investment of the client, who of course we call caregivers, that's then where there starts to become a disparity, where it's like, whoa, I have to do this for this patient. I mean, that's my code of ethics. That's what I mean. That's what it has to have an animal. And the person's like, nah. I understand.
Or I don't have the funds to do that.
Well, that I feel like is a part of it, absolutely, and I don't think you can ever ignore that, because there is the human animal bond spectrum. There's also the financial spectrum. So we talked about the top 20% being affluent, but that's where you start to then have a significant problem when you start to have misalignments of the human animal bond and the financial bond or financial spectrum. Yeah. So the spectrum of human animal bond is financial spectrum, where now in some circumstances you may have really high bond alignment where it's like, this is my fur baby, and really low financial spectrum.
Right.
But then it all comes back onto the veterinarian. How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? This is my kid. This is my baby. And then the veterinarian's like, well, yeah, shit, I know this is your baby. And that's how I think about it too. And, and then it just becomes, it's like, oh, you're not going to do this. And well, I can't. Like, it costs me drugs. It costs me money to buy these drugs, or my employer. And I have an expectation, and they run the place, and I can't do payment arrangements. And there's no cash up front, everything right now, cash up front. So it just becomes this kind of constant ongoing conflict between the actual veterinarian that's coming out of school now, their understanding of care, to sort of the real world application of care. In that dynamic shifts from a semi-rural environment to a highly urban environment, to a purely rural environment, to then say we have such a huge shift, even regionally within a several county circle on the expectation of human animal bond, financial spectrum, to then saying, what we have the ability to do as veterinarians or businesses and who's really in charge. And then at the end of the day, you are out there and you're just doing your best and you're trying to help patients, you're trying to help caregivers, you're trying to keep the staff happy, you're trying to pay people well. And then you just get obliterated online. Then you just get
you do your absolute best, and then you just get shit on.
Best, and then just shit on.
Yeah.
And it's because there is so much work. And I think, to circle it back to sort of how we started this little diatribe is just saying, when the hell do you find the time?
Right.
When do you find the time to do all of these things, to manage all of these pieces, from culture to business to, talent, students coming in, veterinarians or technicians we have to try to train, or office manager. I mean, where's the time?
Yeah.
And I think that's where, me personally, what had happened was I came out of veterinary school when I was 23 years old, and it's pretty crazy to think about that in hindsight.
Yeah.
For me, it was just, I was good in high school. I got good grades. I was like, I just want to be a vet. So I went and did my undergrad. I managed to knock out my prereqs. I got through vet school. And it worked. And, for me, I think, the year I went in, there was 1,800 applicants. I think they took the top 110 or something like that. So I mean, it was a very, very competitive field, to at least even start out in. There's a lot of students who didn't have it as fortunate as I did. But I think in the end, what it allowed me to do is, once I got out, is I'm like the world's best people watcher. I love going to anything from monster truck rallies, to just like sitting downtown on the square and just watch people, the movement of people. They say humans are animals too.
Yeah.
So it's I think when I came out of school, and that was 2006. That was pre-economic drop, right?
Yep.
So I came out and I had essentially 6, 7 years to when I then met my classmates. I mean, most of the my class, I think it was a little bit older. I think we had a lot of second lifers coming in at school, but I think the average age might have been close to 30 or just over. We can always double check that stat, but the idea is that I basically fast tracked it and I got out. And when I got out, I was just kind of paying attention. You get through vet school, and that's a whole different discussion. We start to talk about talent and self-worth, and complete loss of self-worth, I guess, coming out of it is a better way of putting it. But anyway, you come out and you learn to be wary, and you're just watching, and you're not really sure what to do. And I just had, I thought, before vet school, I thought I was really smart, but I kind of come out and I feel like a fucking idiot. So I'm just going to kind of watch some things and see what happens. And that's ultimately then coming up to when I hit 30. That would have been 2010. I was 82, so 2012. I was like, there's a lot of stuff going on here in this profession, a lot of stuff that we just talked about.
Yeah.
And, I think one of the talents that I have is I am a veterinarian, but I think that the talent that I truly retain is problem solving.
Yeah.
And I think, after 7-8 years of veterinary practice, I mean, if you kind of start to learn, you're like, there's only so many tests. There's only so many drugs. There's only so many common diseases. There's only so many ways that people are going to allow you to test and treat. And that then, I don't want to say it, medicine is always going to be challenging, but there's a certain amount of comfort that comes with experience.
Right.
And I think, I had a really, 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 really cush job coming into my 30s. I mean, Katie and I, we had, our first daughter on the way, or close to it. I worked 13 days a month. I had more money than I would ever use as a guy in his 30s. We had a house, we had a 30-acre farm. We had pretty much everything that I could have ever wanted. Like I literally achieved my dreams by 30 years old, which, I mean, it brings a tear to my eyes, but I mean, I really hit that mark by the time I was 30. But then I started looking around, and it's like none of my other colleagues have that. The technicians I work for don't have that. You know, the caregivers that are coming in, and you know, they may not have that, but they certainly, in a top bonded practice, they're not going to get any type of care that they need. You know, and I think even my wife, I mean, the job that she had at the time, it was just another one of these very ingrained traditional type practices where it's very slow to change. And she's an incredibly intelligent woman.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, smarter than myself for sure. But part of it is just, you know, having the same doctor's meeting month in and month out, and, you know, having kind of a lack of accountability. I think that's where Paw Health excels, of course, in accountability. And we'll talk about that when the time comes. But anyway, what I'm driving at is, you know, what happened to us was looking at all these problems we had in the profession and saying, damn, we got it pretty good. And I kind of started to look around. I'm just like, I'm pretty much just going to throw it all away. You know, and because it's the right thing to do. And, you know, for me, it started out by, I'm just going to start asking questions, and it's going to be the same question every time. It's just going to be why.
Right.
Why? Why is it that way? Why is this person coming in yelling at me? Why did I just get a negative review? Why are prices this way? Why, you know, why does a business have to be run top bonded? Why can't we do payment arrangements? Why can't? And I promised myself, I said, all right, I'm going to stop when I no longer have to ask why. If I go this route, because at that point I was naive, right? I was just a vet who's working in North Central Wisconsin. I got a pretty cake job. No one around me has that, but maybe it's just this area. And then I stepped out of the exam room. I stepped into the clinic. I stepped out of the clinic. I stepped into the community. I stepped out of the community into the state, and then into more, you know, surveying of sort of the region and universities. And it's like, oh man, okay, we have a lot of work.
Yeah.
And that's when it snapped for me, when it was like, okay, this is the elephant. That how we started this conversation.
Right.
This is the elephant, and this is something worth fighting for. The veterinary profession is worth fighting for, and we need people fighting. And I'm not saying we have to fight ourselves into the grave. I mean, inevitably when you hear fight, it's warfare, right? And warfare means, you know, there's going to be some casualties. But
well, there will be.
There will be, yes.
There absolutely will be. It's those that. But it's the culture side of things. It's those that, I mean, really the casualty is the dead weight of this old type of tradition, and now like that has to go.
Has to. No, we don't have. That's the problem. Is we don't actually have we don't have any options at this point.
Yeah.
Is you know, you can say what you will about corporate medicine. Corporate medicine is always going to be there. You're never going to get away from it. You know, and I think anyone who makes a business, technically we're an S corporation, so fine, we're corporate medicine too. But I think when we refer to corporations and some of these large business partner, or, you know, large corporate entities, and then it kind of comes down to is a loss of individuality.
Right.
You know, and I think what has, you know, really perpetuated this profession, and what has now starting to significantly affect it, is that loss of culture. It's saying, am I just a number? Do I matter? Does the team matter? Do these patients matter? Or do I just boil down to my production report at the end of the month?
Right.
And at the end of the year, and did I make production? And are they going to cut my wage? And what's my benefits? And, you know, these types of things. So, you know, again, I think, you know, corporate medicine is there, and we're never going to get away from it. But, you know, when we, should I lost my train of thought?
You take the culture.
Yeah.
So you, like, what you're saying with the culture side is like, yeah, you have the financial side and all of these enormous businesses that they didn't, I mean, it doesn't appear from an outsider's perspective like they put a lot of value, time, and effort into like one-to-one culture development.
Yeah, no, I think it's the perfect corporate model. It is exactly the amount of individual and culture that you would expect in corporate. You know, whether you're talking Wall Street or anywhere else, it's that sort of same dynamic where, hey, you're an employee and you do have value, and we do respect and value you as an employee here, and but I think,
but if you don't make your numbers,
if you don't make your numbers, I mean, we got to talk about that.
Which is, I'm just gonna go ahead and say from an outside, like.
Sure,
as
a caregiver,
as a caregiver,
the
concept of production within medicine makes zero sense to me.
Yeah,
Zero sense.
Yeah. It's
That's just
part
me.
of the infrastructure, right? So again, I think, like we kind of said, there's going to be casualties, right?
Yeah,
And, I
absolutely.
think, what we're looking for is we're saying that, we are hoisting the flag, we are sticking the flagpole in the ground, and we are lifting that thing up and saying, no, we need people to rally behind us because we have to do this together.
Yeah.
In the end, it is and always has been us. It's a grassroots and a ground level type operation. And, for me to come back and say, why is we haven't hit the end of that why yet.
No.
And we haven't, and I mean, we've been doing it now for 5 years, on just creating. And I think when we start to get into our discussions of accountability, that's when we start to move up this accountability ladder into solutions and implementation. I think as a profession, we are incredibly good at identifying those things that we don't like. I think in a certain population of my colleagues, I think we do a really, really good job of telling people how bad we have it, and through how bad we have it is how we gain some type of sympathy. Which I don't know any business that can really be built on self, sort of sympathy in that capacity. Victimization. Yeah, thank you. But again, for us, if we start to look at saying, let's start to really get that flag up. Let's start to rally behind it. Let's do it together. Let's have this grassroots type movement.
Yeah.
I think we're good at, self-victimizing. But as we start to move up and saying, all right, yep, I am a victim, but what's the solution here? How can I become empowered? How can I get to that next step? It then circles back to well, there's not enough time in the day.
Right.
So I'm just going to do this again. I'm just going to do this again. I'm just going to do this again.
But it's really hard to advance when your mindset is in the mode of survival.
Oh, absolutely.
It's almost impossible.
Oh, absolutely.
If all you're trying to do is make it to the end of the day, by the end of the day, you're so worn out and you're just like, I need to get out.
Yep. And you can't.
No, you can't.
No,
you can't.
No, you can't.
And I think that's interesting too, because the industry, at least around here, there's so many day practices, right?
Yep, sure.
You've got your 9 to 7 ish,
maybe
whatever, 9 to 5.
Yeah.
It's pretty limited.
Yeah.
And they work on these schedules to like limit it so that they can survive, because they can only handle so much.
Yep.
And I to a point I respect it, because it's like they have to survive.
Oh, absolutely.
So
create your boundaries.
Right.
Yeah. And that comes back to our original point is don't be everything to everyone at all the time, at all times. And I think that's where we still fall. We still set these limitations because you're in survival mode and you're trying to survive. And then when you have a client not like that you're trying to survive, then it becomes, it's like in that day, you're just barely keeping it together. And you're like, this is what I can do. This is what I can handle. And that person gets mad at you because you're trying to protect yourself.
Right.
It's like, so that then becomes the why. How do we fix that problem? Because that is definitely a problem for which there is a solution. So where's that solution and how do we implement it?
Right.
And I think that's what, working together, we've been able to do.
Yeah, for sure.
At
least to a point.
Yeah.
Again, you can't please everyone.
No.
There's always going to be somebody mad at you for something.
Absolutely.
But like going back to that concept of survival and like creating these solutions, it's like, okay, you've got that, but now you have this system that's been around for 40 years that has taught you how to survive.
Yes. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. I mean, because the funny part is you put so much time, work, and effort into figuring how to problem solve within a certain subset of variables.
Yes.
That you develop the skill set of problem solving, but you don't have the variables to understand how to get out of the survival mode.
Correct.
You don't quite have, you don't ask why enough. You don't have the time to put in to gather those variables to problem solve your way out of survival mode.
Yeah. So it comes off of the analogy, of the eye of the hurricane.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think when we start to look at the veterinary profession and we look at this hurricane or this tornado type, analogy is that you get right up to it, right up to one side of this hurricane. You get through vet school, you get through technical school, you come out into the profession. You have just gone through one half of that hurricane.
Yeah.
And you are sitting in the eye of the storm.
Yep.
And there is just so much shit and destruction around you. The whole thing is just whipping around. I mean, it's not Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, because she's in the cyclone in the house we're saying people are right down in the middle of the eye of that storm.
Right.
And you are running. you are running in the eye of that storm.
Yeah.
Because there's no way you can go backwards. You can't go backwards.
No.
So you're in it, and you're just, and that is the perfect analogy for the veterinary profession, because we're just moving with it.
Right.
And what we're saying is that what Paw Health Network and what we've done and our team has done is we've saying, what, we're going to run as hard and fast as we can and fly through the other side of that hurricane.
Yeah.
And guess what? We're going to play cleanup.
Yeah.
And we're going to start to turn into these storm chasers where now we are running after the hurricane to just clean up, to just pick up and help. And, what is it that we need to do? What is the problem? We know how to rebuild infrastructure. We know how to rebuild practices. We know how to do this. Veterinarian coming in, what are you looking for? Yep. Let's see if we can integrate you into the system. Because guess what? There are 2x4s strung everywhere.
Right.
We got to bring in the demo crew to clear this out, clear the land and rebuild.
Right.
We have to get out of the eye of the hurricane, the eye of the storm, and we have to punch to the other side.
Yeah.
And, I think that we're close to being out of the storm. We are very, very close. There's a certain amount of fragility to it. I think any of us can get sucked back in at any time.
It's funny because you get sucked back in by comfort.
Yeah.
It's so weird. Because I love the analogy too, because you run directly into the middle of the storm. And then there's thousands of people that are in the middle of that storm saying, you don't want to go back out there.
No, don't go out there.
Don't go out there.
Yeah, don't
just
go
stay here. It's comfortable.
Yep. Listen, and we'll help carry you a little bit as best as we can. But
we can't fix that.
Yeah, we can't fix that.
We don't have the time. We're just surviving in the middle of this storm. Because if you go out that way, you might lose.
Yeah. And do you have it? No, actually, we're all very smart people in the center of this hurricane. You know what's on the other side of that hurricane? It's even worse.
Yeah.
Everything is destroyed. You have to rebuild it all.
Right.
Just stay right here. Just stay with us.
Right.
And I think it being such a perfect analogy for what it is and where we're at, that's the why.
Yeah.
That's the why. And that's why I said this profession is definitely worth fighting for, because we are on the precipice of something absolutely wonderful and absolutely new. That, again, there's going to be elements to this that are, I think what I like about what Paw Health Network has done, and myself and you and the rest of the team, is that we kind of took this creative destruction process. Right?
Yeah.
So it's not that I have a lot in common. I hate to name drop the Koch brothers, but they kind of have this idea where what you're creating right now, you have to be willing to destroy it and move on to the next thing.
Yep.
Right now, there's no question. You have to let it go, move to the next thing, and that's the same thing with Paw Health. Like for me, it's like, okay, what is the next step after Paw? What happens when this doesn't work? What's the next piece?
Yeah.
So it's this constant model of dynamic, creative destruction in that capacity. But you talk about comfort, and I felt that late last year.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, the business is doing well, where everything is working. And then it was like, oh, but we need you to be risky on that over there. And it's like, oof. But I mean, I kind of like where I'm at right now.
Right.
Like this is kind of a thing, and that's part of content creation, right? Like this is opening up the book, the playbook to what it is Paw Health Network is, and what it is that we have to offer to anyone and everyone who's willing to look. But it's like, we just kind of created our own wound for which people to pour salt in. Say, well, that's here and that's here. But I think the big thing, like I said, coming back to what we've done well as Paw Health Network, is we've taken this creative destruction process and we started to bring in elements from every other industry and saying, well, what are they doing over there that works?
Right.
And what are they doing over there that works? And I think my favorite thing is when you and I have a dialogue of some sort, and you're like, I really think that this, and this is really how a business should be run that does this. And you're like, oh, well, yeah, that already exists.
Yeah. Yep.
And I was like, oh my God, thank you.
Yeah.
Because I know this is a really good idea, but I'm just not sure I have the time to figure that out. And you're like, oh, no problem.
Yeah.
No problem. Yep.
Infrastructure's already there.
Yeah, infrastructure's there.
Yeah.
And, I think coming back to, again, one of the things my financial advisor had said, 8 hours in a day to gain, 10 hours a day to maintain, is essentially it was like, okay, Riolo, you're going to have to work a lot of hours in order to make this work. And that's where, my health has suffered as a result, but 18-hour days.
Yeah.
And that's consistent. I mean, I sleep 2 to 4 hours a night, 4 to 6 hours a night. And it always comes in cycles. I push myself hard enough that this most recent time I did put myself in the hospital, but that was I pushed my limit too far.
That's not the norm.
No, that's not the norm. I knew I hit my wall. I pushed through the wall. I knew I was at the edge of the cliff. I jumped off the cliff.
Yeah.
I knew I needed to pull pull my parachute, and all I had was just like a tablecloth.
And your best piece of advice to anyone that would be listening would be like, hey guys, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Know your limits
Yeah, know your
and
limits.
stop
Yeah.
at them.
Yes.
You can push them. You can
Absolutely.
find where they
Yeah,
are.
don't go that far.
But
Yeah,
don't jump off the cliff.
Don't
please.
jump off the cliff. Yeah, with the tablecloth. And but I think that's the thing with Paw Health Network is we kind of open ourselves up for critique, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I've heard this over here and I've heard this over here. Yeah, but we're bringing all of these elements together into one roof.
Yeah.
And doing that is we're going to save time on developing content for certain parts that do already exist.
Yeah.
And then that's how we start to save time. And I think you're exactly right. I think, people should not have to kill themselves for their profession, and I think what I say is I'm the last person in my organization to fall on his own sword. Is I want the sacrifice to stop with me, but I am not done sacrificing.
Right.
Is I want to start. We have created an environment where everyone can succeed and thrive. I mean, there are stipulations to that. You have to engage culture appropriately. You have to engage core values appropriately. You have to respect one another. And I think one of the biggest elements to our culture was we toppled the totem pole.
Right.
Veterinarians are not at the top of the totem pole.
No.
The front staff is not top of the totem
There's
pole.
no top.
There is no top. It's just the whole, we just kicked the whole damn totem pole over, and it's like, no, we all have specific jobs here.
And they're all critical.
Oh my God.
They're all critical.
My favorite part is when I tell a veterinarian to go up to the front desk to check someone out, and it is just deer in the
Just
headlights.
gloss over.
Deer in the headlights. And I was like, perfect example of why your job is no more important than someone up front.
Yeah.
And we've lost veterinarians, we've lost technicians, we've lost support staff because I think innately, I don't know if it's culturally, I don't know if it's necessarily this region, I don't know if it's America or whatever the hell it is. Equality doesn't sit well with people.
Well, yeah, there's the psychological element that, and I don't, have your opinion on Jordan Peterson for what it might be, and I'm okay either way. Mm-hmm. But he does put a good point when it's like we as animals, as we have previously referred to, is like there is something in our brain deep down in the center that says, I have to create a hierarchy here.
Absolutely.
Even if I don't consciously do it.
Correct.
I mean, and it's still, no matter how flat our organizational structure is, it still happens.
Absolutely.
There's still people that I know I do it myself because I'm super competitive. Like, I want to be the best. And it's not because I want to put you down. No. It's because I want to be higher up.
Yeah.
It's because I want to dominate and I want to look so damn good that everyone notices and I'm going to be on the top.
Yeah. It's a very fun place to be.
But when you're up there, the key is you have to look down and you have to say, how can you all get back up here so that I can get even higher?
Correct.
Because without you, I can't be here.
Yep. Elevate the team.
Right.
Yeah. Bring everyone with you.
You raise the bar, otherwise known as the organizational structure.
Yes, of course.
You raise the standard so that you can continue to beat it and then bring everybody else up.
Correct. And
rather than the other way, which is like, no, you go ahead and stay down there.
Stay down there.
And I'm going to put a middle manager between you and a manager between you. And just so that this guy that's down on the bottom, he's not really valued at all.
No.
But he's there because we need him to be a part of the machine.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Whether you have your regional medical directors to your, any of that breakdown, same thing. And they start breaking it down into everything, for your front staff and back staff, and everyone has a manager, and there's a middle of this and a middle of that. And I think part of what we had done too is with that top in the totem pole, administration's ground floor.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's going to have to be a time when, we have meetings among, managers. So everyone's sort of on the same page and we start talking about organization and capacity. But really at the end of the day is in order to establish accountability, in order to establish unity, in order to establish, some of these, trust and respect within the team, which happens to be our 4 core values. Administration has to be there with you.
Yeah.
And I kind of, one of the analogies that I've used in the past is a tree. I kind of, one of my favorite things about, corporate America, right, is shit rolls downhill, right?
Yes.
Right, okay, shit rolls downhill.
Yep.
But what is it that every farmer spreads on their field to grow some of the strongest crops in
Exactly.
the world.
Yep.
It's manure.
It's shit.
There's a lot of great stuff in shit. So, in my mind, I was like, okay, if we're going to topple the totem pole, really, what can we use as sort of our analogy for what it means to be in tomorrow's corporate environment or tomorrow's cultural environment or veterinary clinic. And I think a tree or a plant is absolutely your best analogy you could ever come with. And, really the roots of that tree is all of your administration. Yeah. Administration is in the dirt. Yeah. We are down there dealing with the stuff no one wants to deal with simply because we want to have a strong trunk to that tree. Right. That trunk is your support staff. That trunk is your veterinarians. The trunk is your front staff. And that's where we start to branch out into saying, well, if we really want to start to, serve the patient and we really want to start, we need educated caregivers. That's another part of the branch of the tree. Yeah. Eventually that leads to leaves. Eventually that leads to the fruit. And of course, then there's the fruit of your labors. Right. But I think when we look the other way and what corporate medicine has been, that is not the dynamic. The dynamic is the shit rolls downhill. Am I an individual? Right. Do I have any say in my own future? Has that been taken away from me? And I think that's sort of the creative nature of a lot of professionals too, is that we're very resourceful. We're very dynamic people. And then it's like, no, we're going to take that from you. Right. And you're just going to do this now. And, you can be happy with that. Some people are going to be happy with that. I am not one of those. No. But if you are someone who is happy with that, I would not chastise you or look down upon you for enjoying that. All I'm saying is it's not in the numbers. Right. Most of us are not there. Most of us don't want to be there. Most of us are stressed out.
And as the generation turns and baby boomers are continuing to retire more and more and more, who were raised in a system that said, yeah, you're going to be a part of the machine and you're going to be okay with it. Right. And it's going to serve you really well.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. But now auto industry, all that stuff.
You've got internet kids. Yep. What's the one thing that so many want is autonomy. Right. That's it. Right. They don't care about money. No. They don't really care about like this massive financial prosperity and the prototypical American dream or even building a family. Right. I mean, marriage is being delayed. They're not having kids anymore. They don't necessarily need that financial gain, but they want autonomy. Right. Absolutely. So these large corporate medicine structures, which are built on the concept of control, and because it's hard to have a giant corporate structure without it, and it's hard to provide somebody any level of autonomy, because we live in a country built on lawyers. We got that side, right? So it's tough because this generational thing is I think a big contributor to what's catching up to this industry.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, and that's the other part too, is, we get back to me chasing a ghost of my own creation, is that, for me to say we're 10 years behind and we have 10 years to go, is that, part of that is, like we said, that group, that boomer generation, these trendsetters, the giants for whose shoulders we are standing upon. Some of them should have retired 5 or 10 years ago, or are going to physically have to retire in 5 to 10 years. Right. They're going to have to, or die. Right. And I think, hearing things over the years is, some veterinarians are locked in a place where they're like, well, this clinic is just going to have to be a monument to my career. I'm never going to be able to leave. Yeah. And when the day comes, either I'm going to die or maybe I luck out and I retire. And it's, for me, I think that's sad in some capacity. I don't think anyone should ever feel trapped. We should always have an exit strategy in anything that we do. But, again, I think when we start to look at saying, where are we at generationally with the profession? Where are we at culturally with the profession? Where are we at from an infrastructure standpoint within the profession? It's just a very, very difficult place to be as a new budding veterinarian, and how you balance all of these things on top of the tradition that's there and trying to eat the elephant, trying to crack the nut, these different elements. And again, I think, again, like I said, we as veterinarians are really good at identifying problems and coming up with new ideas. But by God, it feels more real in the last several months to the last year that, holy crap, we have the answer. Yeah. We have the answer, and we have to get it out to more people as fast as we can, because we don't have time. We sure as hell don't have another economic crisis. We're going to lose probably the bottom 20% of clinics if we go through another economic crisis,
if not more than that, depending on the severity of the crisis.
Exactly,
because the likelihood of the next one being worse than 2008
Right.
is probably pretty high.
Right.
Just because of the nature of the way that those work. It has nothing to do with what's actually happening politically or whatever. It's just the nature of crises.
Right.
They get worse.
Yeah, they get worse, especially this close.
Right.
This close. Put a century between them. Oh yeah, we'll bounce back.
Yeah.
But when you start to talk about in my career, we're talking 2.
Yeah.
Is to say, well, all right, and conservatively, just off the cuff, we lose the bottom 20%. What's going to happen to those caregivers? What's going to happen to those patients? What's going to happen to the veterinarians? What's going to happen to the support staff? What's going to happen in those circumstances where we're still building, we're still running a business that was set in the economic prosperity of the 90s.
Right.
But again, I think what I'm trying to drive at is saying, we're really good at identifying these problems, and to come into the solution side of this, we have to get these things out as fast as we can. And I think that's going to be what the nature of our podcast, to our speaker series, to our engagement with the community, with our mentorship program, and that's really what ultimately this is going to come down to.
Yeah.
Is we have to do this together. It's going to have to be a grassroots movement. We're going to have to come together collectively. Maybe not as an industry. Maybe this is a sidestep. Maybe the industry stays the way that it is because it's an elephant that's too big to eat, and we can't actually break it. However, there is always, and that's why this is a profession worth fighting for. Is we break off.
Yeah.
And we say, this is the way that we are going to conduct business, because by God, it has been incredibly successful in the last several years that we've been doing it.
Yeah.
In an area, in a time where, this particular region, it's not highly affluent.
No, there's a decent amount of money in central Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's here.
But
around. It's spread out.
Your average, because you have, I think what it is you have a lot of top enders.
Yep.
And you have a whole lot of bottom enders too.
Yep.
But the middle it's there,
Yeah.
but it's definitely lower middle class
Yeah.
as a median. The average would probably be higher, but your median is definitely a little bit lower than that.
Yep, and that's, I think, these types of environments are more common. There's more central Wisconsins through the country than
look at a county map and how many are just farms.
Oh, absolutely.
The heart of America is just wide open space.
Right. Right, and it's not even like the 2 miles outside of the city center is a farm. I mean, we're talking like maybe a half a mile.
It's not that far. No.
I mean, we got stoplights. We got stoplights around here, but
it's not Stratford.
Right?
we have one.
Yeah, right. But it still proves a point that there is that old world that still is reminding us that it's there.
Yeah.
And I think for us to not only have put in the time and effort and the sacrifice to build what we've built, and that in an area that we built it, and saying we didn't build a clinic of this. The prosperous, or sort of the success of this clinic in Milwaukee.
Right.
We didn't do it in Detroit. We didn't do it in the Twin Cities. We didn't do it in some of these areas where there's a huge population density that, the top 20% of clientele, there's so many people in that category. You can just work towards that and, have a massive amount. But it's still saying that we are building a business model on the middle 60% of clientele.
Right.
The top 20%, and that's this thing. I would sometimes do phone consultation work for a diagnostic company, Heska.
Yeah.
And they would sometimes have veterinarians call me because I've had wild success with all the Heska products and machines. I mean, better than anything that I personally have dealt with. But so many different levels, which is a discussion for another day.
Just continue to dig for sponsorships.
Yeah, exactly. No, I don't need sponsors. I don't need their money. Yeah, so I don't need anybody's money. I'm doing it, and we'll come back to the money thing in just a moment. So anyway, so I had a phone consultation with a veterinarian one time, and she says, hey, there's a large city about 30 minutes north of me. Mm-hmm. And I have people willing to drive 30 minutes to come see me because my prices are lower than the big city, and they're good value. Mm-hmm. And she says, however, everyone 30 minutes south of me, I'm too expensive for them. They can't afford me. The value's there, but they can't afford me. And her question was, she's like, what do I do? Mm-hmm. I said, drop your prices. Right?
Just make it more available.
You already have the business coming out of the Twin Cities.
Right.
You already have that percentage of clientele. Grab the other part of your curve.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying drop it so far that now it's, because we always have that balance between volume and
Margin.
Yeah, margin.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's see, what is it? God damn it. High. I always say it's high foot traffic and high cost. That's the quality over quantity. I don't know why it was so hard to get that out. I know. That was
Keywords are hard
so
today,
stupid.
I guess.
Jeez. I was just like, what's the matter with me right now? Anyway, so it's you don't want to sacrifice your prices so low that now you're devaluing your service, right? You don't want to sacrifice your prices so low that now everybody's rushing towards you and you have so much quantity of business that you're going to lose out on quality.
Right.
But if you got to kind of tweak the numbers a little bit to bring value and market yourself a little bit better in that 60% of your curve, hit for the middle 60.
Yeah.
If you can figure out a business for the middle 60%, that is where the world is.
Well, and the thing is, if you're available and you have high value, you're going to get the top 20%.
They're there. They're already coming.
And the other thing is too, if they don't come to you and they go to someone else, that's okay.
That's okay.
Because you have this other huge meat
Right.
of the curve.
Right, exactly. You're not, and not everyone's grabbing for this top 20%.
Right.
It's like, no, we're focusing on where we came from. I mean, I didn't come from a rich family. No. My wife didn't. Most people didn't come from rich families. And it's like, I think that was one of the kind of the personal elements to this is saying, I'm up in Wisconsin. My parents are down in Michigan. It's like my mom has to bring a cat into the vet. And it's like, well, what environment is she going into?
Yeah.
I know the emergency clinics where she lives. I know what their pricing schemes are. And I know, and it's like, shit, Ma. Yeah. I mean, you could have drove your cat through 4 states. I could have done the work for you, and it still would have been cheaper by probably $1,000.
Yeah.
And it's not even with family discount. I'm not
just
saying like
straight.
I just charge mom like a client. You know? Not that I would, but still it proves a point.
No special treatment.
No special treatment. Right. Exactly. Yeah. No special treatment. Right. But I think what comes out of all of this is as we start to move up the accountability ladder, we start to talk about, hey, we have something to share. We have something that's different. We have something that's for all of us. As it comes back to digging for sponsorships, is that remember what I said a few moments ago. I had everything I needed at 30 years old.
Right.
Is I'm unbuyable. You could buy my practice. You could put a business across the street from mine, shut me down entirely. I mean, there's ways you can do to financially ruin me, but I can't be bought.
Right.
And I think that's a certain level of clout that I come in with and saying, you know what, it is time to creatively destroy most of what we're doing. Because at this point, it's not a matter of what do you have to lose, it's what do you have to gain.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what we have to gain is affordable and high value patient care. What we have to gain is mental stability. What we have to gain is work-life balance. What we have to gain is a positive work environment. What we have to gain is, good public relations, wellness engagement, shelter engagement, core values. I mean, there's so much that we can gain in this profession if we just fight.
Yeah.
And all we're saying is just carry our flag.
Yeah.
Just carry our flag. And I'm not saying this is some pitch for,
to be a franchise.
It's not. It's nothing like that.
It's just take the idea.
Just take the idea.
Yeah.
And I think we will always be something different to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
To one company to one veterinarian, to one company we might be a capital investor. To another company we might be a consultation work. We might there may always be some element that you don't need 100% of the pie, but maybe you need one part because you need some help with that.
Right.
And I think that's where, coming back to this autonomy, when we start to look at why we're sort of looking at this younger generation of veterinarian. It's not to say we can't help people in older generation. I'm not saying that. Like I said, we're more than willing to be anything that we can to anyone who is looking for help. But when we're starting to look at preserving this identity of autonomy, and we know that from Dr. Bridget Pershner, she's the new dean at the College of Veterinary Medicine at Michigan State. That was one of her big points when I had a sit-down meeting with her, is she says, everyone kind of talks about millennials, and they talk about this new generation is, they don't want to work, they want to do this, they don't want to do this, they want to do this. And she says, no, flip your vantage point on it.
Yeah.
They know exactly what they want.
Yeah.
And that is something that needs to be embraced. Yep. If they know what they want, don't try to feed them something they don't.
Right.
And that comes back to that idea of autonomy is what can we do to help? Because we have pages and pages and pages. And I mean, we're getting damn close that we're probably just need a book deal, but, but what would the book be? The book would be like a 5-part, individual 3-ring binders of just content.
Right.
It wouldn't even really be a book.
No.
I mean, sure, maybe someday
It's
there
tools.
would be. It's
a
tools.
whole big toolkit.
It's a toolkit.
Because same as the caregiver resources that we use.
Yep. Check our website.
Don't get me wrong. Could you put all of those in a book?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't read it as a book.
No.
It's individual parts to whatever is necessary right now.
Absolutely.
Same as our employee reference text. Like
Yep.
you don't need the whole thing all day long, but when you need the one part, boom, it's there.
It's there. Yep. And we are doing nothing but creating it and revising it and creating it and revising it and revising it and then having meetings about revising it.
There are some days where I'm actually thinking it's breathing.
It's the living, breathing document. Absolutely.
Like I feel like I can see its lungs.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's and that's so again, I think to the viewers out there that are seeing this who have hung on for however long this has been going.
We're at an hour.
Yeah, I think an hour is a
great.
perfect number.
Yeah.
For anyone else who who's out there that's reading this, just if you guys can subscribe and pay attention to really sort of the guts of what we're saying is I think the content that we're going to start to put out is going to focus on some potentially hot topics.
Yeah.
I think it's going to focus on some things that maybe you hadn't thought about, but I think a big part of it is just getting, like you had said before, getting the playbook out there.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about speaker series. I think we've talked about a lot of these things, but I think this avenue is the easiest for people.
Mm-hmm.
Throw it on a car ride when
Yeah.
you're driving to work, anything in that regard.
The other thing too that I'll add to that is it's not like there will be hot topics that are touched on. We're gonna say things that are gonna make some people upset. That's okay.
Right.
But
no, yeah, we will, and I think it's that's part of us opening up ourselves for critique.
And it's but it's not meant to be provocative.
No,
We're not doing this just to make people mad. No. Really, what it is you're like I mean, there's a reason that I'm here. Is like the cool part about this whole thing is that it engaged my desire to be autonomous.
Yeah.
Because it's like, hey, there's these ideas. Yep. Take them, run with them, see where you end up.
See what happens. Join the team.
Because why not? Yeah. It's either that or you just end up in survival mode. Yeah. And survival mode's not fun.
No.
At all. The likelihood based statistically within the industry is you're not going to end up in a very good place.
Probably not.
You're either going to end up miserable or dead.
Right.
By the numbers.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
So
and people you wouldn't even think that would even happen to.
Right.
It's just, it can hit anybody at any time.
Right. Yeah. And I'm guessing that I hate to use the word trigger, but you can go from okay to not in a really short amount of time because compassion fatigue is one of the things that we'll touch on at some point.
Yeah,
is like,
absolutely.
That hurts.
Yeah, it
hurts so bad because you push it off, and then all of a sudden you feel like you're rotting from the inside.
Absolutely.
And then there's like, how do I fix this? I'm broken.
Yeah.
Screw that.
Yeah,
absolutely. No more of that. So that's the whole point of this thing is like, no matter what level you're on within the business, let's take the industry and let's see how to get it to where we're not broken.
Correct.
So the whole, don't get me wrong. Yeah. What do we use tools for?
Correct.
To unbreak things.
Correct. I like that. Yeah.
But it's the same reason why a lot of the caregivers come with their patients to our clinic.
Right.
It's to unbreak them.
Correct.
But it's time to don't get me wrong. Things are going to break.
Yep.
You're going to feel like shit some days. It's going to happen. But use the toolbox to get to the point where you can prevent the break.
Yeah.
Or at least fortify yourself.
Correct.
To the
for
point
when it happens.
that when it happens, you know where your toolbox is and you know how all of these things work.
Yeah.
So, man, I'm excited.
Yeah.
I think we're going to hit a lot of different cool things. We're going to share some cool ideas with a lot of people and we're going to really autonomy. That's what this whole thing does.
Yeah. The whole thing, it preserves yourself.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's in the team, and it integrates, and it's going to be tough.
The concept of an autonomous team is a scary one for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But
right.
But if you're going to run outside of the hurricane, that's what you're going to need.
I know. And that's the thing. We gotta push the other side, and we got to do it together.
Yeah.
And so, again, I think we have a lot of value to bring. And, the nice part is we're just going to put it out there.
Yeah.
And,
if somebody grabs onto it and runs with it, I'm going to love it.
And even if they create something totally different than what it is we're creating, I'm just happy to have influenced or had a part or a role in someone's life where they used some concepts or they used what I might have said to better themselves, to better their team. And I think that's when, getting back to what I said originally, is when I stepped out of the exam room, I understood that when I was in the exam room and I could only ever affect the lives of the people in the room with me.
Right.
And when you jump into the practice, you can affect more people just because now you're kind of running a whole practice. When you start to look more at the state level, the national level, you start to look at social media level, you start to look at these, it's like we can have a significant amount of influence to help so many people that we'll probably never even meet.
Right.
But we'll be happy to do it. And we're going to continue to do this because we have to. We have to. The profession is worth fighting for.
Absolutely.
And it's not the sky's falling. This is not a Chicken Little situation. Is that no, we have a very, very brittle infrastructure at the moment, and we need to start to build a new foundation.
Right.
So,
and the opportunity is there for a lot of people too.
Right.
So
right.
just get on it.
So
all right. Hey, we're gonna wrap this one up, man.
All right.
I'm excited.
Fantastic. Yes. Yeah. Let's cut it and go.
Thank you for watching PAWCast Episode 1. For more tools, information, and resources, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify, and join the conversation in the comment section. See you next week.